This is going to be a community interview with the Adepticon 2024 winner, Kenny. Kenny, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, good afternoon. My name's Kenny Ketner. I am from Lubbock, Texas originally. Now I live in Helena, Montana, and I'm a programmer for the state library, and love playing games. And I'm still a week and a half later, super riding the high from getting the win at Adepticon. So
I mean, I would
really
be
happy
too.
to be here. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty interesting, and it's not like it was a small tournament either. I mean, if you look, 40-point, standard tournament, 5 rounds, right?
Yes, sir. And there were 47 players, I believe. Although we did have some drop during the course of the tournament.
How many times have you been to Adepticon?
This was my first Adepticon, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge event. It's across 2 hotels. There's a shuttle running back and forth the whole time. The vendor hall is just massive. Like, I was at LVO in January, and this was easily like 10 times the vendors at this one. It was a really fun experience getting to go.
I need to start getting out to some of these tournaments. I know that the Atlantic City Open is sometime soon, and a couple of the guys.
I saw that. Yeah,
a couple of the guys in our group
that's in
go.
your area. Yeah,
yeah,
you should go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be on my list now after hearing some good experiences from places like this.
Yeah, I usually go to the Las Vegas Open just because it's a little easier from my location in Montana, and there's a group of us that usually rent a van and drive down. But this was my first Adepticon, and it was a lot of fun. I went to college in Chicago, actually, so it was also fun on Sunday after the tournament just to wander around and have a nice nostalgic day.
Oh, I'm sure. So how long have you been playing Song of Ice and Fire specifically?
Well, just over a year, actually. I bought the original starter when it came out.
Okay.
Some of us played it at the shop, and that's White Knight Games here in Helena. I got the Free Folk and the Night Watch starters when those came out, and played it a little more, but never competitively, and then it kind of went away. And then just a year and a half ago, Charles Phillips moved out here. Charles is the top-ranked United States player on stats. Just a fantastic guy and really good player, obviously. And he kind of got a community going. So we've been doing tournaments locally. We did a national qualifier last year. Little 8-person tournament is what it ended up being, but it was a blast. And then 3 of us, Charles, Austin, and myself. Austin is the young wolf on stats. He made quite an impression at nationals. So much that when I got to Adepticon, people were like, "Hey, where's the kid?" Because he's 17, but a great player.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Anyway, so the 3 of us went to nationals. It's it's just so much fun. The tournaments, the community's really great. Yeah, there's just something about this game where it hits that sweet spot, I think, between like a traditional tabletop game and a board game. And it just has this really interesting combos that you can do and talk about all day.
Especially for a war game, it's like very accessible, which I enjoy a lot. Because I could just be like, listen, just buy this box, get 1 or 2 little things if you like it, and then there's your army.
Right. Yeah, with the exception, the caveat to that, I guess, is you got to print 1 million cards to get them up to date. Yeah, you buy a starter and 3 unit boxes, and then you've got, several competitive lists ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the Mother of Dragons, you could even do it even cheaper for Targaryens, which might be a spoiler.
we have a new we have a new Targaryen player, newer even than me, who just bought the starter in Mother of Dragons and is already playing games at the shop and getting better just awesome. With those boxes. Yeah, I'm a Free Folk main. That's my first and favorite army. I've got over 200 painted models.
Oh wow!
For Free Folk.
That's probably because Raiders, you used to run, 5 different trays of them? Yeah.
I have 6 trays of Raiders, 3 Trappers. 4 Giants. It's old school, but even after the Raiders went to therapy and became significant, they're still fun to play as a faction.
I like that phrase. That's good.
Martell's is my second army. That's what I took to LVO in January, and I got wrecked. I went 2 and 4. I did get selected top 8 painted armies, but I didn't win best painted. But still nice to make the cut for the painting competition.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do. I do Martells. I do Free Folk. I've got the Targaryens that I play myself. That's why when I saw you won, I was like, I need to talk to this man.
I'm new to Targaryens. I think they're my 4th army. I would even count neutrals before Targaryens.
Oh, wow.
And at Adepticon, they take the painting very seriously, and I do feel bad showing up with mine that are just primed and, they have dirt on the base, but that's it. I flew in. I didn't want to take one of my painted armies and risk damaging it, so I was like, I'm going to play Targaryens, and I'm just going to, prime them and throw them in a backpack, and we're going to go.
So that was kind of the thought on Targaryens. It was just they were easy to travel with at the time?
Yeah, well, and they're definitely a faction I was looking at, because I like how, aggressive and explosive they can be, but, not just crazy aggression. You have to be specifically aggressive. It's a piece of advice that Charles gave me that has really helped.
Yeah, I've definitely found sometimes you'll spend the first 2 rounds just positioning to get a cascade of charges off.
Right, yeah, because with Overrun in the base deck, and especially with the improvements to Overrun in Season 4, you really want to make sure and get your position right and then explode, and that's the way to do it.
Targaryen's got a huge glow up with the Season 4 stuff. I mean, it sounded like it was minor changes at first, but between, fixing Unstoppable Advance, Fire and Blood now just being an attack trigger, not a charge trigger, so it's much easier to use.
Yeah, they became more universal, more accessible, more just generally useful, the tactics cards, for sure.
Yeah. And, I mean, our units are already insane. Screamers were, I like to joke, the best Lance Cavalry in the game, basically, for their points.
Yeah, they're glass cannons, though. You really got to watch out for the clapback with Screamers.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how you managed to avoid that. So what were you expecting when we, I guess when you got into the metagame? What did you think you were going to be going up against?
Well, in some ways I wasn't surprised, because there were a lot of Starks, Lannisters, and Baratheons. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the big 3 I expected, and those were the top factions at the tournaments. I was expecting double Tully Cav lists, but there weren't any, actually. Not a single double Tully Cav Stark list. I mean, people brought Tully Cav, but one.
Yeah.
And my first match was versus Great John with 1 unit of Tully Cav in there, so I wasn't disappointed in that regard. The big surprise, of course, was no Free Folk.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll definitely talk about that too, but it was I was just blown away with the fact that there was no Free Folk at all. In a 40-something player tournament, you'd figure one person would have tried it. Maybe maybe they didn't want to carry
trying new stuff, I guess.
Let's get into it. Let's see. These are your tournament lists. You brought 2 lists, one with Khal Drogo, one with the Shave Pate.
Or Shazmo, as
Shazmo?
Sunday Slaughter calls him, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, obviously, one very aggressive list, one commander who you don't see very often. I guess, what was the thought behind bringing Shave Pate with you?
Yeah, Shave, and I didn't end up running him for a single match, unfortunately, but I was prepared to. I practiced with him, but it was a circumstance where it's a control list, and none of the matchups I had felt like they required control. They were more like, play the aggressive list and you'll have a better chance.
Yeah, I mean, I see that with the Outriders wanting to obviously hang much farther back.
Outriders are a control piece. I think Shave Pate's tactics cards are all about responding to your opponent. All the triggers, pretty much. Yeah. And there's a surprising trigger on Giscari Justice. It's response to any ability, basically.
Okay.
So you can really catch people off guard with that. And so the idea is that 4 hits in a panic test plus a Varys hit could really drop a unit to 1 rank and then finish it off with a single attack. That was kind of the hope of the list. Is to control and respond.
if I could take a stab, I guess this was more for against, I don't know, Martells or maybe like a free folk list that was heavy on traps or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be the way most free folk players play right now, unless they're running giants, is a control style.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that the biggest brained faction is the cavemen.
Right. No, I love it. I as a free folk main, I love it. But
oh yeah, no, I mean, they're fun.
Yeah, and against heavily armored opponents, it's less good. I'd rather have 2 dragons with me to melt that armor.
As shown by the other list, where it's just pedal to the metal aggression.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and Zaro is really the key to that list in a way. Or XXD, as the Discord community is wisely abbreviating.
Yeah,
these names are crazy. Like,
oh yeah,
in Targaryens. Anyway,
I loved how they said in the patch notes or like the preamble to them.
Yeah,
it was like if you can't pronounce the name, they probably got a buff, and boy, did a lot of them get buffs.
Yeah, I almost brought Hisdar instead of Varys in that Shave Pate list. But I think Varys is probably just more useful.
Yeah, I mean, his stuff is so, like, generic. I just kind of like just throwing him into a list if I'm like, I don't know who else I need.
Yeah.
Let's just throw Hisdar. Easy.
Yeah. And Zaro used to kind of work that way with a buffet of options that were confusing and
yeah,
hard to use.
Slightly useful sometimes.
But... So the thing with the tokens on NCUs is they're really hard to counter. There's very few things in this game that counter NCU tokens.
Yes.
And, dropping a rank for attack dice when you're being attacked can be the difference between a dragon living and a dragon dying. So,
oh, don't I know it?
that's pretty huge to include him. And in my, 1 month of testing before Adepticon, that was something that came out. So
yeah, let's talk about, like, I guess the core, because you notice that you've got a couple units that are like in both of the lists, and some of them are more interesting than others. Obviously you've got the Danny Unburnt with Drogon, and I think most people at this point respect that's
probably pretty standard, I would guess. But I mean, the thing is, even good players forget about Dracarys. You can surprise people with an extra attack from a dragon.
Oh yeah, I mean, between Danny, the swords, and the dragon itself, you can easily be doing 2+ attacks in a round.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And 2 attacks from Drogon can one-shot somebody.
Potentially. I mean,
you
gotta roll. You gotta roll pretty good, but it's possible. Yeah.
You gotta respect it.
Indeed. Yeah. And Miri, I think, is like an auto include now. She's so good since the update.
I think everybody I've seen playing Targaryens has been putting Miri in their list and has been loving it. I mean, between the free heal every time she just activates and claims a zone, that's amazing. Yeah. And then the amount of tokens you can put out is just insane.
Yep. Probably, 6 tokens or so a game just from Miri.
Yeah, unless you really need to heal or something like that.
Yeah, or grab the swords or something. Yeah, exactly. And her other ability never came up in this tournament for me, but just today on Facebook I saw a post where someone put Jokin and Widower in the same unit to get double relentless. Basically.
Yeah, I heard about that one. Some people were memeing about it.
Yeah, so you can do the memes with Miri too, but really it's the tokens and the healing for sure.
Yeah. One interesting unit, and I mean, there was a little talk about it, but some people kind of said it was overkill, was this Unsullied Pikeman Jorah Mormont combo.
No,
tell me, what made you land on this?
Okay, I caught Turning Grounds where they talked about it a little bit and said it wasn't very good, but it's good for me. I think Obviously. It's the monster. I think it's a monster anvil is what it really is.
Okay.
But between Shield Wall and Stand Your Ground, which you do have to remember to use it, and we'll talk about that because I forgot it some on the final table, which I chalk up to nerves. But anyway, between Stand Your Ground and Shield Wall, you can take just about anything. And then just the whole package together.
Yeah, I mean, like, basically, when somebody charges you, it's like you charge them because you get your rerolls, you make them vulnerable.
Set for charge and martial training combo is nice.
Although
not versus sword masters, of course, you don't want to do that. But.
Yeah, well, there's a time and a place for everything.
Exactly, it's just a monster anvil, and the way I play, I find that maybe it's a crutch, sure, but it helps me.
I mean, I'm sure the one glaring weakness, I guess I would say to that unit is it just dies to a good archer, like a good range unit. But I guess if you just dodge those, you just dodge those units, and hey, that's not a bad. Worst case is it sits on one corner, and if the archers want to run all the way over there, that's fine. Your dragon flanks the other way or whatever.
Yeah, and the rest of the list is extremely mobile, so
yeah.
You can hopefully deal with a unit of archers. The other big risk, I would say, is if you have someone that blanks abilities, or like Aryan and the Martells who can blank attachments.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that one can.
Then it's like 8 points worth of just regular guys, basically.
Getting into the Drogo list specifically, obviously you got Khal Drogo. And you elected to put him in Screamers. Some people are putting him in Veterans. Some people are putting him in the Blood Riders. What made you pick the Screamers?
To be able to fit in the Unsullied with Jorah was really the deciding factor. My backup version of this list that I almost picked, I put Drogo in his Blood Riders. I put Jorah in Stormcrow Mercs. And then I bring Tycho instead of Zaro.
Okay.
So that's like the alternate version of this list, and probably that version works better for more players. But for me, this was better. So,
I mean, I think Drogo in Screamers is plenty enough damage if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Whatever unit Drogo's in, you have to be careful not to get clapped back too hard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's, I guess, one of the best parts about Zaro, though, is, oh, no, you ranked me, you did 6 wounds, I'm still going to throw 7 dice.
Yeah. You could use him offensively like that. I almost exclusively used him defensively.
Oh,
but
I'm sure.
That option is definitely still there to pump up the Screamers if they need to finish somebody off.
How often did you claim the bags and get an extra token?
Probably maybe twice per game.
Wow.
Because I didn't. Yeah, it ended up being less than I expected. And
that's more than I expected, to be honest.
Oh, yeah? Well, yeah, it's important to have some. I actually ran out in my hardest game, or one of my harder games. I don't know that I can say which one was hardest, but my game 2 versus a sturdy Baratheon list, I actually ran out of those tokens. I was like, oh, this is rough.
Okay, yeah, that one was a very close game. I saw the score for.
Yeah, that was 1 point difference game for sure.
And then obviously the Rhaegal is just another thing that Dany can target to do an extra attack with. It's the second best dragon by probably
number 2 dragon, yes.
There's a definitive tier list of these dragons, isn't there?
Yeah, poor Viserion is just kind of.
Most people don't even remember his name. He's that bad.
Yeah. Well, unless you're running an all dragons list, which is still fun to do.
Oh yeah, I mean sometimes you just gotta burninate, So,
by the way, at Adepticon they used the battlefield terrain. I actually like that a lot.
Oh yeah, it was. That's the one where they have like set terrain pieces, right? Like you say, it's two of these.
Right,
whatever.
And it cuts down on the kind of decision paralysis right at the beginning because you have a limited set of terrain to pick from.
Okay.
So I think I actually like that system. I was skeptical, but for tournaments, I think it's really useful. It helps you get the game started faster.
Might need to try running that in our local groups. See how that goes.
If you're doing a local tournament, try it. It's worth it.
Let's start talking about some of your matches, right? So round 1, that was Feast for Crows.
Yeah, that's a hell of a way to start a tournament too, because it's such a brutal scenario. That was a great John list.
Yeah,
and it had such cool tokens too, like
hand
printed, like Yeah, it's very neat stuff. He even had like labeled for Caitlyn influence, and he brought Jack and Hagar, and he had a token for that too that was labeled.
Oh, I
Just
love it when
really,
people.
really well. Yeah, and you get a lot of that with players in this game, where people clearly put a lot of thought into it, even to the tokens. But yeah, it was a fun match. I love Feast for Crows as a scenario.
Yeah,
I foolishly sent Drogon 1v1 versus some Umber Ravagers, and that was a bad idea. Drogon ended up with 7 wounds on him and had to go sit in the corner for the rest of the game.
he's lucky he made it out.
Yeah, exactly. He was lucky in that regard.
It looks like it was like a hard fought battle. It was 4-4 VP.
It was. It was a draw on points. I had killed a little more because Rhaegal got rid of 2 infantries with an overrun and charge to the rear.
Oh, you'll love to see it.
Yeah, classic dragon stuff. And then after that, he was able to maneuver back onto a corpse pile point.
Oh,
and also,
even better.
So that was the MVP play from Rhaegal. So definitely
Rhaegal just cleaned it up.
Yes, and I lost Khal Drogo in that one, and
yeah, it was nice bloody fight.
It was bloody all around. Very close game. Great opponent.
That's awesome.
Excellent way to start a tournament. And yeah, draw on points, but I had a little more on the field.
Mm-hmm. We were just talking about Great John in my local Discord about he can be nasty. The berserker tactics or whatever.
Yeah,
where
I got berserker tactics twice. It's rough.
4. You're like, yeah. Oh, okay.
Especially versus dragons, you got to be real careful. Have all these wounds put on your dragons right away.
Yeah, just immediate wounds, and then it's not like they're the sturdiest things. They're only saving on 4s.
Yeah, that's what happened to Drogon. He got berserker tacticked in the face from the Umber Ravagers and had to flee.
So then your second rounds, that was
that was versus the Stannis list.
The first
this tournament too. One thing about Adepticon is there's games all week long, and I think a lot of the players were like really tired just from playing games earlier in the week, which is definitely a factor.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think in terms of just the list, my opponent in round 2 had the scariest list. Is this unkillable Baratheon?
Yeah, Champions of the Stag, Glory Seeker, 2 of them, 2 9-point cavalry, just insane. With the Lightbringers, with Bronn, Tycho to keep everything healed up, so it's not even like you could whittle something down.
And yeah, the Zaliz and Shireen combo with Tycho. So I was whittling away at that Stannis unit all game. Unfortunately, all my dragon damage was a 1 on the D3 every time, like at least 4 attacks. So I was doing minimum damage with my dragons.
Oh,
and he was doing maximum healing. I did eventually kill Stannis' unit, but then he popped that combo and healed him back up to 8.
Oh my
so
god!
It's like,
yeah,
it's just so demoralizing. So I just had to retreat my dragon away from that at that point because it wasn't gonna.
I mean, whatever you did worked. Yeah, I guess you were really heavy on the victory points. You did a lot of objective gaming.
Yes, I had to. I contested a lot of the objectives with the dragons because in that scenario, solos count their wounds as ranks.
Yes.
So you're not going to outrank an 8-wound dragon.
No, it's not easy.
Right.
Not a lot of things can do that.
Yeah, I ended up losing Khal Drogo's unit in that game as well, and just can't go toe-to-toe with Baratheons for long.
I mean, based on the points, that would be Drogo's unit and the pikemen went down?
Yeah, that's correct. Lost both in that game. And yeah, it was definitely had to play to the scenario 100%, and it was still really close. And I think later my opponent told me he missed a final strike, which could have maybe killed Khal Drogo 1 round early. And he didn't ever, I think, fire the archers off of the bags, although I could be remembering that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a long day, it's a long weekend, and I'm sure this wasn't his first game of the week.
No, I think he played in the team event the day before.
Oh, God bless
But
his
yeah,
soul.
his name's John. He's a cool guy. We went and got lunch at IKEA right
Ooh,
after
what is
on
it?
a Saturday afternoon. That might have been kind of a silly idea because we barely made it back.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you just gotta play the objectives with with Targaryens, even though
Right. So you can be aggressive, but sometimes that just runs out, and you got to use the mobility. And in the case of the dragons in this scenario, their ranks as solos.
yeah, it's a very good tool to use in those situations. So I guess on to the third game.
It was also a Baratheon opponent. Now this was a Renly list though, so I got Stannis and Renly both.
Oh boy.
This was the guy that won, I think, Best Painted. Actually, it was a gorgeous army, and he had this cool like heraldry on all the shields that was based on his family's coat of arms and stuff.
His own family?
Yeah. Super
that's
cool.
awesome.
I love a personal touch in this game, so it's such a neat thing to do. It was an all infantry kind of spammy Baratheon list.
Yeah, I see that.
And he kind of lined them up across the board, and I was like, okay, my game plan is I'm going to eat up this army from the left to the right, and that's basically what I did.
Yeah, I mean, this one looks like a bloodbath of a game. 12 victory points.
It was a bloody game. It was honed and ready, which is a bloody scenario anyway, because you're getting shot from the walls when you score most of the time.
And I gotta say, I think Targaryens probably do the worst at that type of game mode. Like, we don't have a lot of high armor stuff.
The armor is rough. I think I ended up holding with Khal Drogo's unit and actually one of the dragons, but not for every round.
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say.
Anyway, yeah, it was bloody. I did a lot of killing that game, but still a good game. When the points are that high, it's usually a sign of an exciting game. So.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I see why he picked kind of the spammy infantry option, because the Baratheon infantry is not going to care about the arrows from the walls, and they didn't.
No. Yeah, between the Wardens and the Stag Knights, it's like, all right, fine.
Yeah. But the dragons and Drogo were enough to cut through them, so.
That's why you bring them, right?
That's, working as intended.
So then on to your round 4, which was Winds of Winter.
Yeah, but my opponent never showed up.
Ah, well, congratulations to that one.
That feels bad to get a win that way, but I was ready to go. I was waiting, and eventually the TO came around and like, you got the win. And I love Winds of Winter. It's a fun scenario to play.
Yeah, it's an exciting one for sure.
Yeah, because it can go off the rails.
Yeah, because that's the one where you make the list of different missions each round, right? And you
build a little deck of 6 and
that one's you can make some nutty like lineups with that.
Yeah, and there's always that one where you steal first player. That's kind of annoying, but definitely makes for exciting games. But,
yeah, exactly. That's the type of stuff I like to see.
I mean, I was able to. Like, I had all this time because there was an hour for dinner after round 4. So, like, I got a snack, I got a drink, I wandered around the vendor hall for a while, just kind of clear my head, right? So that ended up being kind of an advantage in the tournament, too.
You get a whole, how long, or 90 minutes to just chill?
Yeah, basically, plus the hour for dinner, so.
Oh, yeah. So you were...
Yeah. So I was fresh.
Fresh and ready to go.
Fresh for the final table, which makes it even worse that I kept forgetting stand your ground. But
yeah, well, maybe you got a little too comfortable. And
maybe.
What a round 5, it's Dance with Dragons, it's a Targaryen mirror match, it's almost like it was destined.
How perfect is that? It ended up being like a dragon egg custody battle between Dany and Drogo.
And I mean, this also looks like, it looks like you ran away with this game.
Yeah, it was a really fun game. Lucas is a great opponent. And it was, I think from the beginning I had some advantage because the way the terrain was set up, I put 2 bogs on 2 of the tokens, which is nasty for Dance with Dragons because
Yeah.
Infantry is going to move 1 inch, you know.
Yeah, and
if
you
they,
can't
if they get,
march, and yeah.
and then he had put out stakes and a corpse pile and kind of stacked them on my side, and then I won the choice. So I said, well, you take this crappy side over here. So he had to deal with the stakes and the corpse pile and 2 bogs on tokens.
That's the danger of setting it up like that.
Yeah.
You know, so many people just set up like symmetrical, and then, you know, that way it doesn't affect it if you lose the dice roll. But sometimes you just gotta hope for the best with that stuff.
Right.
And I guess it didn't pan out.
Yeah, he dealt with it well, but it still helped me out during the game because that corpse pile plus, you know, a vicious dragon attack in the rear is a -5 to your rolls. So
yeah, and like nothing on his list to survive in that one.
Correct.
Like
yeah.
even the Unsullied go up to 9. You know.
Yep.
That's not easy.
Right. And so that kind of set up like a race for the token that's not on the bog.
Okay.
Which I kind of took advantage of it as well because I did like a head fake toward that. Like, oh, I'm really going after this token, but I really wasn't. I was really just trying to kill everything but the sword masters was the goal.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that looks like a chunky unit to try to fight through.
Yeah, I'm basically the list I had while aggressive is not really equipped to take on sword masters, so I knew I would just have to avoid. I didn't attack them once because I didn't want to trigger the relentless.
Yeah, why give them a free attack if you don't need to?
Exactly. With the exception of not retreating soon enough once, I think I avoided them pretty well. But that's the unit that he ended up picking up that token with, which I think was a mistake because it's his best unit and it's now got 2-inch movement.
Yeah. No, that can hamper that one.
Yeah, and he failed he needed a 5 on a charge and 5 inches and failed it on.
Oh my god!
A kind of an important moment, so it worked out.
Listen, sometimes the dice giveth, and sometimes they take away.
Yeah, for real. The other thing was I took a chance on some charges. I made 2 6-up charges, or I rolled 2 6-up charges. I made one of them. My thought process with such a risky charge was even failing the charges is good for me tactically because in terms of where my unit would end up. And I know they're not going to fail their panic. So I'm like, why not go for
whatever.
it?
They're just
Dragons and Unsullied, they're not going to panic in that situation. But I made the 6-up charge into the Outriders. And his Outriders never got a ranged shot off in the whole game. So
that's
was an advantage.
How you do it.
Yeah, so I was able to kill them and then overrun. With the new overrun, I could march away from danger. So his Stormcrow mercs with Jorah were just kind of dancing around in the middle and not really doing anything because they couldn't reach the dragon.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best part about a dragon is your threat range for an auto-in charge, is usually like 13 inches basically. So you can be totally out of any range unit, any charge distance or anything like that, and all of a sudden you're just on them.
Right. That was the basic idea. I moved my dragons to the right side of the map in round 1, and I was like, I'm a threat to the Outriders, and they're not a threat to me. And that was the idea of the positioning there, and it worked. And that overrun on dragons is just delightful.
Oh my god, it's so much fun when you could just breathe like 4 things of fire in one turn, and you're like, that was...
The other bit of luck, I had both assault orders in my hand pretty early.
Okay.
So I at the end of round 1, and I was going to go first round 2, I assault orders Drogo into his screamers, but he counterplotted it, so that didn't work. But I had the other assault orders in my hand, so it was like start of round 2, assault orders Drogo into his screamers. So the initial engagements were pretty much set by me, and that really helped.
Risky. I mean,
yeah.
based on the results, it sounds like it was a good idea, but wow.
Yeah, I still had to retreat Drogo because he had the Stormcrow mercs on there too.
Yeah.
But that kept them spinning around and not going after a point, not going after a dragon.
Yeah,
They were not much of a factor at that point because I much faster than them basically. So
yeah. I keep seeing the Stormcrow mercs Jorah. I've tried it out a couple of times. It just hasn't been my cup of tea.
It's just not a scary unit. It's a little more survivable with Jorah, who's a fantastic 1-point attachment, maybe the best value 1-point attachment out there.
It's up there for sure.
Really, yeah, top 5 surely. But the Stormcrow mercs are just not that scary.
No, who I've liked putting in Stormcrow is Belwas.
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's just kind of nuts how much damage they could still put out.
Yeah, the new Battle Scars is really good too. And
new Battle Scars is insane.
Yeah, it's great. No, it was a great game versus Lucas, and despite forgetting Stand Your Ground, I remembered it in other games. I remembered it on his Jorah, and we remembered Stand Your Ground there, but just not on mine for some reason. Again, I think that was just final table nerves. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what happens. I mean, 5-round tournament, that's also like a grueling day, you know?
Yeah, they're going to split it up next year. They're going to do either 4-2 or 3-3, I think.
What time did you guys start, and what time did you guys finally end?
Started at like 8 a.m., ended at 10 p.m.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, some of that includes like lunch break, dinner break, awards.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But
I mean,
still, that is a very, very full day of gaming. Yeah.
Yeah. 14 hours of just being on your feet. You know, it's a loud, busy hall, I'm sure, and it's not exactly conducive to focus. So I can see how round 5 of a tournament, you could start to slip stuff like that.
Yeah. That's what loses games sometimes if you forget it, because it made a big difference. So yeah, you gotta remember your abilities. Yes.
So I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but as far as the tournament went, you said obviously there was a lot of Lannisters. It's kind of not surprising because they've been doing well recently.
Especially Gregor, scary dude.
Yeah, he's a scary guy. I guess you're kind of glad that your round 4 noped out.
No, it's true. That would have been a tough matchup.
Yeah, I was thinking. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, oh boy.
You got to play keep away with Gregor.
And then surprisingly, the second most played faction was Baratheon. I guess not too surprising.
No, they're having a moment too with some of the fixes to their cards, and I mean, Final Strike in the base deck is still just really strong.
Final Strike is yeah.
That's why all the free folk players usually bring one steer list just to have Final Strike, I think.
It's true. It's funny because it used to be like their consolation prize for taking so much damage. Now it's just like, oh wow, that's I always know I'm in trouble when the Baratheon player, they fail their panic check, and then they're like, "Do you want to reroll the damage?" I go, "Oh no."
Yeah. Let's get that number a little higher, huh? I can take it. Come on.
And then on top of that, oh yeah, I was gonna say that Stark's also being up there with that. I mean, with the Great John, I'm sure there was other commanders doing very well.
Yeah, I think Great John's the main. I think the Great John stats were a little rough, but yeah, the Starks are scary still right now. They've got the double Tully Cav, but like I said, there were no double Tully Cav lists for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, like Robb Stark did pretty well. He had 5 games. He won 4 of them. There was
we talk about that locally. Charles thinks people are sleeping on Robb. He's got a lot of potential, and I agree. Seeing how important movement is in this game, he can have a lot of surprises in store.
Yeah. Now, movement is definitely one of the most important parts of this game, for sure.
Right.
Like, looking at the top 8, so it was Targaryens, Martells, Night's Watch, Baratheons, another Targaryen, Somehow
Mm-hmm.
Bolton snuck in there, and then a Lannister player.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's right.
well, what do you think about that one? The Boltons sneaking in there, 7th place.
Well, I know I met Mark at Nationals. He's a really strong player, so I'm sure whatever he brings, he's going to do well with. But yeah, I think Bolton's, now that they can take neutrals, that opens up a whole lot of creative options.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go down too far till you see a pure neutral army doing quite well.
No, you're right. Down in, 11th place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Off the
it's
back of joking.
and I think that's going to be a tempting thing for good players to try and make an all-neutral army do really well. Yeah, I'm still scared of Night's Watch too, and that's, I think, from being a Free Folk main, that's always my kryptonite, is the classic Free Folk Night's Watch battle.
It's just like the war.
Yeah, those war flashbacks. And I know Brett brought those, and
Yes.
he's one of the top U.S. players, and I think he did quite well with it as well. So.
Oh yeah, no, he did phenomenal. 3rd place, 13, 15, 84. So he did his fair share of killing stuff too.
Yep.
And I mean, I guess just when you've got Ranger Hunters and you just throw a million dice at something, it'll
do the trick
gonna
eventually.
die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I mean, it looks like it was a lot of fun tournament. It looks like it had a pretty diverse overall, barring the whole Free Folk missing.
Yeah, the zero Free Folk is just weird. Actually, at the end of the tournament, I asked Marty, the TO, since there were no Free Folk, can I have that best Free Folk class? And he gave it to me. So
That's kind of funny.
So,
yeah, I mean,
shout out for that. Thanks, Marty.
I mean, it's funny. I was making a joke. Oh, they probably just didn't want to pack all of their
that was
in a bag.
That's literally why I didn't bring Free Folk or Martells, is I didn't want to risk my painted models on an airplane. But
that's fair.
Yeah,
I've never flown with models, so one day I'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, there's ways to do it, but I fly cheap, like the basic economy backpack only plan. So
yeah, I mean, especially for a tournament, like what else do you need, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the game's in a really good place right now. You can take any faction and have fun playing and be competitive.
Yeah, I really don't think there's like a loser faction. There's obviously
Right.
some standouts and there's some standout lists, but
Yep.
nothing's like, oh, you just can't play Starks. Obviously not.
Yeah, I looked at the stats earlier today, and Targaryens are near the bottom, right above Boltons. But final table at Adepticon was a Targaryen mirror match, so there you go.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is, and we've seen it. I think German nationals not too long ago, Targaryens won as well.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
They just, if you know what you're doing with the list, you can really, take people by surprise.
Yeah, and it's the mobility and the specific aggression that you can bring to bear. It's really makes them sing.
Yeah. So I mean, like, how was if you had to make any changes to your list, would you make any changes?
No, I'm really happy with the Khal Drogo list. Khal Drogo, Stovetop
Drogo?
Stevens calls him Khal Drogo, and he's got me doing it now too. Khal Drogo list, I'm really happy with. I like I said earlier, I think most people might enjoy it more with the Tycho instead of Zaro, and then Jorah and Stormcrows and Drogo and Blood Riders. That version of the list.
Okay.
But Double Dragons is just fun. And then you get the Assault Orders overrun stuff. It's just
yeah, I mean,
a lot of tools.
His cards are brutal.
Yeah,
in a good
and
way.
for both of my commanders too. That's another reason I picked Shave Pate as the alternate, was they each have a way to earn a point that's outside of the scenario rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, especially if we did banners and butchery, which never came up, thankfully. People don't like that scenario.
It's a much different scenario than most people are used to.
We don't really like it in Montana. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
But there's a way. But there's a way you could score a point without strictly sticking to the scenario rules. So that could be a difference maker in those cases.
Yeah, we don't play it in our local tournaments, but that game mode. But
Hmm.
it's always on like my mind. Like, how would I be building something for that? I
Yeah.
know Jorah is somebody on my mind for having like a way to just score a point outside of a normal game.
Yeah, it's not something that maybe people consider, but for a tournament, it's a good to have another option to
Yeah,
get a point.
and sometimes just squeaking out that one when they don't expect it.
Yeah,
They're
they're
looking
very
at the
very
race.
circumstantial, both of those cards, but yeah.
Yeah. So who was your favorite opponent for the weekend? If you had to say one.
Well, it's really tough. Um, it would be between Lucas at the final table and John in game two. Um, yeah, I'll give it to John because that list was so scary. That Stannis list with
Yeah,
the yeah
the double
double champions
stags.
of the yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, and the you can't kill me combo.
that
Um,
looks like it was
yeah,
such a pain to fight against.
yeah, and I don't think he lost any other games. He placed quite high in the end there. So yeah, it
Huh?
looks like he got fifth overall.
Look at
So
that.
yeah,
You were fighting highly placed people all tournament.
yeah. Well, and it's there were a lot of good players at this tournament. So at some point the good players beat each other.
Yeah, right. I guess that's
That's
how that
just that's
works.
just that's just the nature of tournaments, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, uh,
but I was fortunate it ended up in the case where I was the only undefeated, because otherwise it would have gone to tiebreakers, and I was kind of close on tiebreakers, but that's also part of why I went after the Stormcrow Mercs at the end of the final game with just to secure that standard victory.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Hey, congratulations again. I mean, that it sounds
thank
like it
you.
was a heck of a tournament. It sounds like you had a lot of fun. I mean, you're giving me all
I
these great
did.
stories.
Yeah,
So
no, it was a whirlwind day, but I had a blast. Yeah, for sure.
that's awesome. Any other tournaments you plan on going to soon? You said something about
Well,
Las Vegas, right?
yeah, as well. We at White Knight Games in Helena, we'll continue to have local tournaments, and I think a national qualifier in June. Like a
Okay.
regional qualifier. I'm going to go to nationals, especially since now I got it all paid for thanks to the win at Adepticon. But I was hopefully going to be able to go anyway. That's in October, and I'll probably be at LVO in January again next year, and hopefully return to defend my title at Adepticon next year. We'll see if I can make the trip happen
Yeah.
2 years in a row. Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe I'll even try to make it there myself.
Yeah, it's a blast. I mean, it's such a huge event. There's so much going on. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you'd have a great time, I bet.
It sounds like it. If it's half as awesome as you make it out to be. Well, I guess the last thing is, do you have any shout outs you want to make? I mean, you've been mentioning your local game store a lot. Do you want,
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So, shout out, yeah, White Knight Games in Helena, and John and Joel, the owners, for giving us a place to play. Stormcrow Games in Lubbock, because they still had Unsullied Swordmasters in stock. They're hard to find right now.
Yeah, aren't they?
All the song players in Montana, Charles, of course, who kind of whipped us all into shape, and Austin, Jason, James, Josiah, Faye, Joe, Scalade, Tony, Corey, Mark, Will. Shout out to the local scene. um, I want to shout out Mickey and Jerome for saying nice things about me on Tourney Grounds. I really appreciate that. And Sunday Slaughter for streaming the events and building the community. I joined his Patreon this year. I recommend everybody to do that because for live tournament games in the U.S., they do a great job.
Yeah, it was
And
really good to see decent coverage of a tournament like this. We were all chatting about it in the Discord while it was going on.
yeah, no, that's excellent. Yeah, exactly. And without that, the game would be missing a lot, I think. So,
100%.
and yeah, and shout out to everybody on the song Discords out there.
Yeah. Well, dude, it was great chatting with you. I'm really glad to have gotten this opportunity. You know, it's not every day that somebody wins a tournament of this scale, and especially not with a faction like Targaryens.
Yeah, it was a blast, and thank you for a lovely interview. And yeah, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it as well.
No problem, dude. Thanks for listening in, guys. I know this isn't our normal content, but we thought it would be fun to try, and we had a great opportunity with a very pleasant guest. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and if you want to see more of this, definitely let us know. Drop a like if you'd be so kind, it really helps us grow the channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.